Hello and welcome to the Hedonistic Way at Midday show. I am Renee Main and we are in for another amazing conversation with an epic human being. I'm really excited to bring and share this beautiful woman with you guys. She is a somatic fury of goodness. She is so passionate about everything that she does, and I love how she's got this rawness, this openness that she just oozes, and she shares it from a place of just being so grounded, and it's like she's relatable in the most beautiful way, yet the wisdom that she shares is absolutely epic. She is a counselor, she's a sexologist, she is a yoga teacher, she's a spiral practitioner, she's got so many certifications up her sleeve, and I'm really curious to dive in and have this epic conversation with this woman, because she's creating a new paradigm for intimacy and how we show up in the world. She's live and ready to come on now. Oh, why did it just turn? Let's have a look. Oops. My phone has just turned around. So let's just say, I'm going to add you in now, Victoria. I'm going to see. Add. I might need to end up turning my camera around. So let's just see how we
Hey!
Hey, how you doing?
I'm really good. How are you?
Good. My phone's just decided to do this weird kind of thing. So, now
You're sideways. That's right.
Now I'm sideways. Is that better for you?
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Oh, is it? Because I'm coming up sideways on mine, but that's okay. If it's coming up okay for you, then...
Looks good for me.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Cool. Awesome. For those who are watching, can you please let us know if I am sideways or not?
Okay.
Because it's... Okay. It feels a bit weird because I feel like I'm literally sideways. But anyway, that's okay. I'm working at stepping more into my multi-dimensional self. So that's okay. Welcome to the show, Victoria.
Thank you.
I'm super excited to have you here today. I know we've been kind of going back and forth for months. So I'm glad that the day has arrived. When I was just kind of reading into you last week, and I was on your site and I was checking you out, and I really like to get my own feel for what kind of comes up for me, for every guest that comes on the show. And what I was curious about is it feels like you've had a real unfold. I mean, we all do, but there's been a real gentle unfolding in your journey. So I'm curious to know, why is intimacy so important to you, and how has it changed from when you first started working as a counsellor, I've assumed, but I'm not sure, to where you are now with all of the sexology work that you do?
So what is intimacy? Why is it so important, and why is it... Yeah, how has it changed? Okay. So I feel like intimacy is really important because it represents connection to me. And I feel like connection is like the pillar of like well-being. And that connection is like to the land, to ourselves, to the people around us, to our mission, to our like the purpose of why we're here, all those pieces. It's like full connection. And I think that the intimacy really describes like the feeling of the connection. But one of the ways that I speak about intimacy and relationships in general is to really listen to the love that is available in our intimacy and our connections. And I think like the word intimacy really like journeys like how to really listen to that, because it's like how do we see into it, how do we get more information from it rather than trying to tell it how to show up, you know. And as I feel like you know, that to me is like the definition of the old paradigm versus the new paradigm. A lot of people think it's about open relating or polyamory or any of those things, but I don't think any of those things are very relevant for the new paradigm. I think what's relevant is that we're listening to love and taking the time to actually be with it and be intimate with the love that's actually everywhere if we just tune in. Yeah.
I love that, and being open to the love. What come up for me is then why do some people struggle with the intimacy that they can almost allow in, if that makes sense?
Yeah, there's a couple of pieces of that. I think, well, one, it's hugely vulnerable. Anything that is hugely transformative is hugely vulnerable, generally speaking. And there is a certain amount of like power and energy that comes through like intimacy, and especially through sex. Like there's you know, the energy, our sexual energy is our strongest life force energy, and it's one of the only ways that we don't have to do anything outside of ourselves to access our power. So one of the often like you know, it's like drugs, sex, and money, right? So those are the pillars of taboo in our society. And you know, when we're playing in the realms of money, we're looking outside of ourselves and we're dancing with something else. When we're working with plant medicine or drugs of any sort, we're outside of ourselves playing with something else. This energy is already in here, and all we have to do is breathe and allow it to be. So actually, I think it's why it's like the final dragon to slay all the time. You know, it's what I always refer to it as, because it's on the self-development journey or on the journey of life. It's like the last thing that people want to look at. Yeah, it's crazy, hey?
It's never, and that it is, and you're right, because like for me, it was my last pillar as well, and it absolutely felt like, you know, that last pillar, although I'm sure there's, you know, there's that infinite well, but but you're so right. And why is it? Why do you think money, sex, drugs are taboo?
Because they're extremely powerful. And they offer freedom, they offer choices, and they offer liberation, enlightenment, all the pieces. You know, it's all in there. It's all in our ability to really tap into like to dance with it, basically. And I think there's such a beautiful tipping point of balance when it comes to playing with these particular energies. You know, it's like there's so much addiction and codependence and you know, negativity surrounding these energies, but there's also like there's this peak point, which is what I tend to speak about, which is like this like tantra for high performance, where people really get to know that peak point, and they get to utilize those high states of flow states that we create through sexual energy in everyday life, without becoming addicted to sex, without becoming you know, like using it as a habitual stress relief. You know, it's just like when we learn how to cultivate the energy, we don't actually have to let go of like sex the moment we walk out the bedroom, because sex begins to walk with us in every single moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you just hear, and I wanna inquire and explore with you more about this peak performance, because you know, with the hedonistic way, and you know, a lot of people, you know, think that it's about this solely being in the pursuit of pleasure, but where, you know, in the past that may have been the case, but the reality of it is it's about honoring whatever is showing up around you and having the ability to hold your own soul and finding pleasure and hedonism within that moment. So I want to ask you, because I think it can be a fine line sometimes, you know, when we're on this journey. How then do we know, how do we get to the peak? How do we know when we're tipping over into something that is an addiction, or there's less connection, or, you know, it's something that's not really serving us anymore, like it's an unhealthy relationship?
Yeah, I think when you can start to see how it's impacting the other areas of your life, you're going to know pretty quickly. And I think the game of like sex, money, and drugs is to play as closely to that line and find out where that line is. And it's just like riding up on that edge and playing with it in a really fun way. And also like not making meaning of it once you, if you feel like you go over the edge, you know, like, because the beauty, I think the piece is, I mean, I personally don't feel like I've ever come close to sex addiction or anything like that. It just feels like, but I also recognize that I don't particularly have an addictive personality. So I think there's something to honor in that as well. But there's this conversation of like, what is too much? When do we decide it's too much? And, you know, when something's impacting your life in a negative way, do something about it. And when you're not having the results that you want from life, do something about it. Play the game. And I actually feel like we're talking about like the peak states and the going the other way from like accessing it is kind of like quite irrelevant, I think. And actually I think the issues that we have are way on the other side of like people being able to break through their conditionings to even experience the peak states. Like that's the more mass issue that we have at play in our society right now. Yeah.
Very true. But isn't that interesting? And it's funny you mention that, is because I was just thinking about this maybe last week, is that, you know, in terms of, you know, I was thinking for myself is, and I think a lot of people is, I've always said that I've got a very addictive personality. And so for me, like drugs for me was a no-go zone, because when I'm in, I'm all in. And often that line that we speak about is, you know, for me really quickly overstepped. But then last week, for the first time, I kind of went, that's just a belief. Like, that's actually crazy. And so that's something that can absolutely be changed. But I think you're right. Like, a lot of people have the fear of addiction, or the fear of what it might be like. However, the reality is that they're actually really far away from that line because they're caught up in the conditions. So let's talk about that. What are some of these conditions, and why is it so unlimiting? And what questions can people start to ask themselves in terms of, like, where am I at? You know, are there any conditions or any fears that are holding me back, so they can kind of work out where they're at in this journey?
Yeah, for sure. So like the process that I have created around my self-pleasure modality is really like a transformation through touch process. And that starts with looking at like what is the pieces that are holding us back from stepping into this transformational process. And that starts with like the first step, which is clearing through the past. So a lot of things that are holding people back from accessing in these peak states is that there's a lot of trauma in the body, and there's a lot of panic stored in the body. And so when we like, first of all, we need to start addressing that, and then and like actually being okay to be here, like in the present moment, be here right now, you know, because and once we've actually addressed that, then we can step into the next stage, which is, you know, connecting to the present moment, which is embodiment. You know, and once we're embodied and we're in our body, and we have this deeper awareness that things are kind of filtering through the body and not so much through the mind, then we start to trust our instincts. We start to trust our primal nature. We start to trust our sex, which is something that we're shutting down and pushing away all the time. And then from that space, that's when we can step into creating the future. So those are the 3 steps: clearing through the past, connecting to the present, and creating the future.
And sometimes it's easier said than done, because we're so much on automatic. And, you know, I was having this conversation with my partner yesterday about presence, and it's something that I think is really you know, and I say in one of my spoken word pieces is that people talk about time like it's the most precious commodity, but I think our attention to time is actually more important. You know, where is our focus in that moment? And so I want to ask you, because I feel like it's a direct link. You spoke earlier about the taking the energy from our sex and I want to say penetrating it, but that sounds a little bit like I'm forcing it. But how do we use that sexual energy and take it into our day so it doesn't actually become this thing that we do in the bedroom? And how can we use that energy in our everyday lives?
Yeah, I think that we allow to, well, first of all, we need to start trusting our primal energy. So, like, once we trust the primal energy, then we've got no problem with our sex being alive in each moment. So what we don't trust is that, like, we don't trust our animal, our primal state, you know, at all. Like, and so what's happening is that if I'm walking down the street or something and I feel like I'm suddenly getting turned on for some reason, like the societal reaction is to go shut that down. And so we've created these neural pathways that go, sex isn't welcome anywhere apart from my bedroom.
Yeah.
Which creates this idea that it's not safe to be sexual, which creates the idea that our primal energy isn't safe. And the primal energy is like the peace, the final dragon, as we keep saying. It's like that once we start to trust that, then we can actually lead with that. You know, and I was on someone's podcast last week and we were sharing about, you know, it's one thing in the spiritual community to show up and have our heart be present in every moment. And it's another thing to allow the heart and the sex to be present in every moment. That's like real courageous, real bravery when we allow those two pieces to come together. And when they're together, like, that's when your heart is fully backed by love, you know, like the people, you know, there's this idea that it's like the heart was so fragile and you know, we can't be showing up in this way. But like the piece for me is like, we're not fragile, we're actually sensitive beings. So it's like, it's about like that level of sensitivity without the fragility. And the way that we hold our heart open in every moment is to back it fully with our sex. Because when that energy is rising up through us, and it's just like, we are here, we are landed, and we're safe in our bodies, and we're okay to face whatever comes to us.
I love that. And it just feels so, you know, just in that, it just feels so expansive, you know, just hearing it and feeling it in your body. It's just, and something that I, you know, realized just again when you were talking then is so much of this, Victoria, is unspoken. You know, like a lot of these beliefs, and you talk about these neural pathways and these messages that we send to ourselves, most of it is unspoken. And that's, you know, and I think that perhaps is why it's so hard for us to acknowledge and to see it in the beginning. If we're going through our day and someone is really stressed, or you know, they're not connected to that primal energy and to that sexual energy, what is something that they can do to connect back in to that when they feel that disconnect?
Yeah, for sure. So this is what the whole self-pleasure modality is about. It's like taking the time to be with yourself and drop in and start to learn and have awareness of what's happening in your body. So the process is really like, how do you start to be in here? And that is like gaining awareness, and not the kind of awareness where we sit and think about, okay, what's happening in my body right now. Is the awareness where we like drop in here and allow the body to speak to us rather than the other way around. So it's like so it's sort of just feeling the sensations and allowing the sensations to become louder. Because what I wrote a post about this morning as well. It's like, there's this thing with, like, it doesn't matter if I'm talking to empaths or I'm talking to people that have been labeled narcissists. It's like they both have the same issue, is that they've allowed the external environment to become louder than their internal environment. You know, so they're not hearing their inner voice anymore. And so the steps to come back into our body when we're stressed and when we're walking around and we're disconnected is to start actually hearing the inner voice that's in here. And like a lot of women that I take through this practice, the first couple of times they sit down with a self-pleasure practice, they might be like, nothing's happening. I don't know why. Nothing's happening. And it's just like, actually so much is happening. And it's not maybe until like they start to actually get this technique on listening to the body, they start to realize how much is happening. And it's because it's so subtle.
It is,
you know, right. And that's what's happening when people are getting triggered in everyday life. So like, if I don't know, like you started shouting at me for something like that, you know, maybe three or 4 years ago, I would have been like hugely impacted by that. And I'd be like, oh my God, you know, I'm not worthy of anything because this woman was shouting at me, blah, blah, blah. And now if you were to shout at me, my body I would feel exactly where that's impacting me in my body. And I wouldn't make meaning out of it. So that's what happens when we create that space. You know, we stop making meaning out of it. It's like we start to, like, it's not like, oh, this woman's awful because she's shouting at me, or you know, I'm not worthy of anything because this person's shouting at me. It's like, no, there's just a sensation that's happening in my body. There's a ripple effect from someone else's experience. It's now rippling through my body.
Yeah. What does that say about then the mirror theory in terms of everything is a reflection of ourselves? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think there's a time and a place for mirror theory. And, you know, and I think it's great. And I think it's like the first steps, you know, to going, okay, cool. What does this say about me? But not everything that happens in life says something about me. Not every single thing, you know, like, it's like, there's so much happening, and it's just like, and there's not always a story to tell about what's happening.
Yeah.
And I think like, for me, that initiation really came through business. Like, you don't, like, one of my biggest initiations through business was realizing that, like, I'm not going to get it right, you know, like, it's going to, things are going to happen, and I'm going to have to pivot, and things are going to have to change. And the less meaning that I can create around that when that happens, the less stressed I can be about making the next decision. And like, that has been a huge, beautiful initiation into releasing the mirror theory. Because if I'm like, I think the spiritual community often has us spend a lot of time analyzing and getting aware, which is the first steps. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's like, this is a great space to really understand. But the next step when you're moving into like peak performance, high performance stuff, is letting go of all meaning and just actually allowing the impacts of life to happen for you. And to ripple through you, which is what I believe, my take on what Tantra is that. So it's like, how do I open this vessel or this body enough so that I can allow anything that's impacting me just to move through me, any fears, any stress, any upset, any grief. And also, how can I let this, how can I not attach to the pleasures and the bliss states and the things that are going right in my life? How do I just like let go of that too and allow that to ripple through me? And enjoy it as it all ripples through me, you know? Like, this is, like you say, the hedonistic way is just to allow that to happen.
Yes. I really want to acknowledge and honor the words that you just shared, because over the past week, again, and maybe that's exactly why it's coming up for me, is because I really resonate with what you just say about the mirror work and the reflection, and there's absolutely a time and place for it. But over the past week, it was that, well, hang on a minute, you know, it no longer felt as honoring, you know, in my body, and but yet we hear it so much in this community, you know. So then, when we're on this journey of, I want to say, spiritual awakening, but whatever it is, you know, whether you're activating that section, you know, your own sexual energy, whatever you are in your life, there's so much information, and I want to say residue from the information era that was, you know, 5-10 years ago. And now, as you say, we're in this beautiful connection era. And I just had a little kind of download into what you're going to say, but I'm still going to ask you anyway, so I hear it in your words. Is then, how do you know when all this information is around us? How do you know when something is right for you and their relationship to it moving forward? So how do we not take that on, and how can we begin to just, I want to say, use discernment?
Yes, good words.
Self-honoring way.
Yeah, for sure. So I speak about this a lot, and that kind of comes back to my story of the empath and the narcissist. It's all about emitting our own frequency. You know, so, and what happens when the voice inside here is loud enough is we start to emit our own frequency, and we get less impacted. So we start to share from this place of like, okay, I'm not sharing and going, oh, I can hear the voices of everybody else in the spiritual community and what they think of what I'm about to share. And that to me has been like a massive piece in this year of me stepping out and going, oh, okay, so what if I actually spoke about something about Tantra in a different way? Because a lot of people in my community talk about Tantra and working through trauma, which is a huge piece, you know, like it's definitely something in the collective. But what happens when we start speaking to the other part, which is like the high performance part, and how do we start to use that for the flow states? And, you know, and it's a collective thing, right? And I guess I'm just starting to hear this voice inside of me that goes, all right, I'm okay with being loud enough to speak this stuff into existence, things that are not being said. And yeah, and it's been a process, I think, of like really strengthening the volume of my inner voice and allowing it to become louder than my community. And I think we have so much connection to like belonging in community that it takes something to really step up and go, actually, I want to be the voice of something else. It's not, you know, like, I've got nothing against mirror theory, but even saying that is something that is a little bit against the grain of what we believe in the spiritual community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to ask you about that sense of belonging, because that is very, I feel like that's, you know, very root chakra, that primal energy, because we all do want to belong. You know, it's the foundation. And then in the journey, we get to the point where we actually do, you know, we get more in touch with, as you say, that inner voice and our truth in that moment. How is there a smoother transition from accepting that, yes, I do want to belong, but I've also got this voice and I really want to share it. You know, it's my privilege to share and we can't squander that. What is something that we can do in that transition for those who are going, I really want to belong, but I feel like I'm pushing the boundaries if I say this because no one in my community is doing this. And it's that fear of being different, but not wanting to be the same either. What would you say to those people?
I'd say slay your final dragon. Start addressing your sexuality. Like, this is the piece, you know, like it always comes back to that. It's like the longer you ignore your sex, the harder it's going to be. That's what I want to say.
What do you think is the biggest misconception between sex and intimacy?
For sure. Like, I mean, intimacy doesn't have to mean sex, and sex doesn't have to mean penetration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Full stop. That's
Full stop. That's all I got for you. Bullet points.
So then, you said earlier about people exploring the love and the intimacy in that moment, and, you know, and sex, as you just said, doesn't necessarily mean penetration. What does that look like, and why is it so important that we begin to understand the differences in these things? Because they feel really subtle but or huge at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that what I have journeyed myself and what I journey with a lot of my clients, men and women, is that the body is different every day. And if you jump into bed with your partner every day and go, right, we're having sex, and that means penetration, that's like creating a demand on the body that which I have seen cause dysfunction in the relationship and also just like in the body itself, because the body doesn't like to be under pressure. The body, like, it just doesn't work like that. The body wants to move how it wants to move, and the more we can listen to that and like get in touch with that, the more we can actually honor it.
Yeah, absolutely. So true. And that's, as I joke with my partner all the time, is because he will say, you know, oh, well, did you like that? I'm like, well, in that moment, yes, I did. But, you know, it's something that you can't highlight or benchmark or put on a pedestal, because we do, you know, we are so different in any given moment.
Yeah.
Then what can people begin to do to explore their sexuality more?
Yeah, and so I guess this is where I would like to speak to like the piece that I say in every podcast and every interview, which is the difference between masturbation and self-pleasure. You know, so my answer is they should self-pleasure, and now I want to like share what I think self-pleasure is, or what self-pleasure is to me. So for me, masturbation is I'm going to sit down with my body and have an orgasm, have an arousal, or have pleasure. So it's like it's quite a limited idea of what I'm expecting from my body in this moment. Whereas for me, the self-pleasure is when I sit down and I allow my body to speak to me, and there's no goal orientation to what's going to come through. If pleasure and arousal and orgasm comes through, great. If I don't touch my genitals, also great. You know, if it's just like allowing the body to be. And when we do that, like that impacts all the other areas that we've spoken to in this interview. It's like, how do we start to listen? How do we get triggered less? How do we, you know, start to move into sexuality? How do we start to hear ourselves? How do we start to strengthen our inner voice? How do we start to emit our own frequency? All those pieces come back to self-pleasure and listening to the body. And the piece is to really listen to the subtleties and not make meaning out of them. So it's like, when you sit down with yourself, there's like a lot of what we have an issue in our day and age is to be present with ourselves. So like, shut off the TV, shut off the mobile phones, really just be here right now and be in your body, and allow for whatever arises to come up and not resist whatever arises. Because when you sit down with yourself, there may be a reason why you've been avoiding that for some time. And when the fear starts to arise, or the sadness arises, or whatever else is there, it's just like, how can you be with that? And then at that point, for me, it's just about using sound, breath, and movement, and not necessarily to, like, it does tend to transcend things. So it just moves things through the body, but just to allow them to start moving, because all this emotion is just energy that wants to be in motion. It just wants to motion its way through your body, and so it can move. Because every emotion only lasts between 60 to 90 seconds. The meaning that we attach to them creates more emotions, which creates a cluster trigger, I call it. Or a cluster fuck is another word I like to use.
Yeah, so true. Why do you think that we're just beginning to understand this now? Like, for me, it feels like that there's something that it should be taught in schools, or it's something that we should be teaching our children. It feels so important that we share this with our youth. Why do you think that we're only beginning to now understand it?
I have so many answers to this, but one that I'm particularly passionate about in this moment is like the Criminal Act around sexuality and around prostitution, all those things, was written in 1889 in Australia, Queensland. That's the last time that we thought to look about how sex should look in our society.
Yeah.
Like, it is horrifying. Like, I was mad when I found that out, you know, and I'm like sitting here trying to see where my modality fits into the world, and I'm researching stuff that's written in 1889. I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like no fucking way. Like, I was so mad about it, because I was like, this is why, like, it's not integrated. It's been pushed to the fringes for so long and considered dangerous and considered taboo, that it's not a part of our everyday life. And when it hasn't been a part of your family's generations for however long, you know, we wonder why we've got like such big issues with rape and pedophilia and molestation and everything else in our society. We are not, like, we're so scared to even feel anything, you know, like, you're at like, okay, things are to get pretty controversial, so I'm gonna like speak to what I feel is like alive. And that's, you know, like, to have a feeling inside of your body is not a bad thing. If you feel a sexual feeling inside of your body towards anybody in the world, that's okay. How you choose to manage that feeling, how you choose to act on that feeling, is how we deal with it. I've been studying criminal justice as well, like at university, and we're looking, it's so interesting at, you know, people say all the time, like, I want to murder that person, I want to kill you, you know, like, people say this language all the time.
Yeah.
And we have an acceptance of killing and murder and death more than we have acceptance of if someone was to say, I have sexual feelings towards this person, and that be inappropriate, you know, like, or, you know, like, I feel really strong animal energy that I want to have sex with this person. That is like so not allowed. You're not even allowed to think it, feel it, say it, anything. Never mind, like, you know, of course there's things that we shouldn't do that are unconsensual. But like, we're not even allowing people to experience it in their own body. Like, we are controlling what happens in people's bodies. And the reasons why these energies in our bodies are getting so loud is because we're not giving them a voice, and we're not giving them a voice for ourselves. So until we start doing that and start accepting the primal, and the more we shut down the primal nature, the louder it's going to get, because it's an animal in the cage when it's shut down. Whereas it can, when we start to actually own that energy, it just circulates through us in a really beautiful way, and we don't have to be concerned about it. And it comes out in a really healthy way, and we don't have any of this, what people are referring to in spiritual community as leaky sexual energy, You know, like this, all this bullshit stuff that we talk about. It's like, actually everyone has leaky sexual energy to a degree because it's not accepted.
Yeah, absolutely. What can we do to, like, you know, within our own communities, or just maybe let's start within ourselves?
Yeah.
Is to really be aware of this leaky sexual energy, and, you know, making it not wrong and beginning to accept it within ourselves. What do we need to do?
Okay, well, I'd like to abolish the term leaky sexual energy would be my preference. And I think that's a good start because it just has so much negativity attached to it and so much judgment and so much bullshit. So let's just fuck that off to start with.
And even saying it feels yucky.
It does. It really does. I really don't like it. And so, and then from there, I just want to bring, like, I want everyone to go into their self-pleasure practice, be with their own bodies, accept whatever arises, allow any desires come up, and notice where your resistance is to your desires. Notice where your resistance is to feeling rejection with your desires. You know, claiming your desires within inside of yourself so that you know them. And because only there can you start to, like, love them and have compassion for them and allow them to have space to be in the body.
It's just, it just feels good. Like, it's just, I'm enjoying just waves of just, you know, of pleasure through my body.
Beautiful.
What has been your experience as to the ripple effect of this? You know, once people begin to tap in and get to know themselves and listen to that inner voice, what changes for them? You know, how do they look at life differently? What does the world look like?
I love that question. Thank you for asking that. This is so important. Where do I start? I mean, my own journey, for instance, is, like, probably the best place to start. It's just been almost like it's been like a descending into grounding into the earth and having a full understanding of who I am and who I be in the world. And then just, like, ascending up into the heart space and just allowing myself to become more and more of service and having more of an impact from just being me and not having to try so hard and not having to be anything that I'm not. It's just like I've stopped fitting in, and now I'm like, oh, wow, this is actually where I'm starting to see abundance and impact in every area of my life. And then just, like, my clients that I take through this process and the women in the Institute of New Paradigm Intimacy, they are just getting more and more clarity. So one of the first things that drops in when we come into the self-pleasure practice is vision, because so much of it is locked into the base and so much of it's stuck there. So once we start to actually, like, free up the space and not be triggered all the time and not be stuck and keeping all this stagnant energy and all this pain and all the pieces locked in the body, we free up the body to be actually have, like, a straight line of Kundalini just to be able to rise through and be able to see exactly what we need to do next. You know, and that goes for impact vision and, you know, what you want to do in the world, mission and all those pieces. But it also goes for, like, just the everyday decisions, like, do I want a child? Do I want to be with this man? Do I want to even have sex in this moment? Like, boundaries. Boundaries is a huge one that seems to drop in for people as soon as they start doing this work, because they start to know where their inner voice is, like, and they stop being impacted by their desire to be people pleasing or to help others in a way that is detrimental to themselves. Like, it's just like everything changes for the better is my answer, but those are the main ones that I really see. Yeah,
that's so beautiful. What is, like, how important is it that, like, I know you have the institute where, is it solely women that you work with within the institute?
The first round I'm just taking women through.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, like, how important is it that we work on self, like, before, what am I trying to say? Like, I feel like there's so much, like, there can be so much codependency, you know, in relationships, and that, and maybe that's actually my question. So, and I will actually get to the question. I think I just need to unravel it in my head a little bit.
And I know this game very well for myself.
So, you know, I love how you talk about and what you share about open relating, right? And, you know, and the way, I want to say the way we couple, but you know, just within our relationship, I feel like, and then how we show up individually, I feel like it can get really murky sometimes in terms of, you know, I'll say our self-responsibility and how we show up within a relationship, you know, like, um, you know, it could be something like, I'm so, I'm such a spiritual good girl, I'm so tapped into my sex, and you know, you need to really work on, as like, you know, my partner really needs to work on this, or this, or he needs to do this. How can we show up within our relationships in complete, without putting ourselves on a pedestal or deeming anyone as wrong or right? And how does that then work into open relations? And yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good.
So I got some pieces in that. I think the question is like, how do we kind of not be merging? How do we put ourselves first? And and how does that refer to open relating, basically? So is that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So open relating to me means to meet the love in each moment. And it means to get past the ideas of how we're supposed to show up and how it's supposed to look, and actually to listen to the love that's between us. And there's a hierarchy that I have within that, which goes, I put myself first, then my partner, and then my relationship. And then so what we're creating in that is that we've got this relationship that is the foundation that's holding us up, rather than us underneath it going, oh, we'll just hold this relationship up even though it's heavy and it's difficult and it takes a lot of work and takes a lot of hours in my day. Like that's not how it needs to be. Like that's not how it gets to be. Like this relationship gets to be malleable and flexible and honor the people that's inside of it, so that the relationship lifts us up and has us be in the world as the best versions of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. What do I want to ask you? There's a question floating around in there, but while it's not quite ready to come out yet, I don't think. I want to ask you then, Victoria, is what is turning you on at the moment?
That's a great question.
My favorite.
It's a good one. What's turning me on right now is my program, having 29 women in the space that are ready to create impact. Like I've just had so much emotion bubbling up about how amazing it is that there is like nearly 30 women that are just ready to become the transmission of sexuality, which is what I see is going to make a massive difference in our society. Because when we start to have more and more people that are creating this permission, then it has a thing where everybody comes along with it. You know, my journey has been to be, okay, am I okay with being the one person that stands alone and in most communities sharing about sex? And it's been a big one. It's been a big piece of like, okay, where do I fit in? Do I not fit in? And is that okay that I don't fit in? And all those pieces. And so it's been okay. But what I know that actually creates the impact is, and what really like turns me on in that is to go, like, when the message gets to be that beautiful and that clean and that clear, because there's just a way that we have to manage this stuff with sexuality because it is so confronting for people. And for me, what's really turning me on is finding that space where I get to play on the edge of calling people forward to slay that dragon, and also just keeping people safe enough in their own body so they're not so confronted by it, because it is a confronting energy and it's a lot to face with all the generations that haven't faced it. So that's what really turns me on, is finding that edge of like what I can share and how I can share it, and you know, just like playing with it and making it palatable for our society right now.
Yes, and palatable is such an on-point word when we speak about this, and which leads me to the next question: is when you work in this space, and I'm assuming that you've come across it as well, is that people begin to go like, "What are you doing?" You know, I've been asked if I'm the devil, like. And so people get really confronted and perhaps triggered by the work that we do in this space. So then how do you then go, you know, so the people who once knew you for what you used to do, or, you know, and you begin and you do it so beautifully, how you share, I said it in the intro, I think today, is, you know, one of the things I love about you is that the rawness and the openness in which
Thank
you
you.
actually share. It's really beautiful and it's really honoring. So no, thank you. But then in that, there's people around going, like, that kind of look at you sideways, you know, and go, well, what are you talking about? Like, what, how do you make it palatable? Or what can people begin to do? Because I feel like there's, especially a part of this community, there's a lot of people who are really just, they've been in the spiritual community for a while. They're delving into their sexuality now and beginning to explore that. And people will look at you sideways. What do you say to those people?
I tell them I've got a fuckload of research. So that personally, like, that's what I say. And that's, like, you know, part of me making my message really palatable, because it is quite out there, I suppose, for some people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been collecting data, and I have a research team that actually, like, proves how powerful and potent my work is, and really has tracked the process of transformation that I've created for many people. So really, it's about like again, like, how do we bridge the worlds? Like, I haven't personally had anyone call me the devil, so I don't know if I can really relate to what you're sharing, but it's like, but I get it, you know, like, it's like a lot of people. It's about finding what people are actually resonating with, and that to me is like, I'm understanding that, like, it's beyond, like, self-pleasure is not about masturbation, like I keep sharing, and it's okay if that's the lens that people want to see it through too, because it does incorporate the genitals, but it's about just really allowing it to become a holistic way of being. And I think that, like, the reason why my message is received is because it's not just about sex, it's about everything. It's about having all of us online, about being in our full aliveness, and everybody wants to feel in their aliveness. So there's a resonance piece there.
Absolutely. And how do you remain connected to your sex and have that level of humility and build this institute and have your voice be shared globally? How then do you sit in that space of absolute humility without the business side of things overtaking the busyness?
Okay, I'm not really sure of the question. The business. How do I not let the business take over the what? The busy, like.
Yeah. So how then do you be? I guess how do you remain so honoring and centered in all of who you are? You know, sometimes, you know, when we're creating this, we have this big mission and we're on this, you know, we want to, you know, everything that you're doing with your institute and the work that you do with your clients, you have these goals or purpose. How do you not let, I guess, that reptilian brain step in the way, and how do you remain connected to that primal self and still grow your business?
Okay, so I mean, for me, it's a process of staying connected to the sensuality of it all. So, like, for me, business is about, like honoring myself so deeply, and taking care of myself, because I feel like my health is a really high priority and a really high piece of what I have to offer. So, and it's about, like, feeling the tension of business and feeling the impact and just being of service to what's needed in this moment. Again, like, not letting overwhelm take over and become a big problem, but just like connecting to the sensuality in the overwhelm, connecting to the sensuality in tension, connecting to the sensuality in every single piece that comes up. And so at that stage, it's like, okay, cool. So this is what needs to happen. And seeing, like, not getting caught, staying humble in the fact that, like, it's just a step-by-step process. I'm not changing the world. I'm not, doing all these things. It's just like, I'm just taking steps on whatever is truth in each moment. And I think because the inner voice is loud, it's like the truth of what it needs to happen in each moment becomes really obvious. So it's like easier not to get so caught up in the stress of things. And it's like, okay, cool, this is what needs to be done today. And I can't do anything about that. And that will work itself out in its own time.
Do you think that it's possible to become, you know, like I was thinking this morning about, you know, the good girl, you know, kind of persona, and, you know, the way, you know, when you first work with self-development, personal development, it's like, yep, I'm doing this and I'm nailing it like a boss, and I do this 20 times a day, and then you work into spirituality, and then, you know, and then you become a spiritual good girl where you do the work all the time, and then, you know, you go into sexuality and you do this, and it's like, well, yes, I've pleasured today and everything else. How do you keep it from being a genuine act of pleasure and not something on your to-do list?
Yeah. I want to say the same thing. It's like the inner voice. It's about knowing truth in every moment, from trusting the voices within you. So you stop doing things because I have to do this because it's a spiritual practice, and you start to you just know what your body needs in every moment. You're like, okay, cool, this is what my body needs right now. Okay, actually, I need to rest right now. Oh, okay, I need to work hard right now. You know, like I think it has become like the more time we spend being in the body and not being in the mind or out here, like the louder this all gets, the more obvious all these answers get, because it's all the answers are inside of ourselves, which is what I wrote about this morning. It's like when we're externalizing our instincts, like it's just like the instincts are all in here for a reason. Like we actually need to listen to the instincts when we're told to. It's the same with them, like diet actually, and like sleep and all those things. Like for me, I don't ever diet or try to lose weight. I just eat intuitively. Like if I eat a lot in a day, I'm like, cool. It's because I needed to ground. Clearly, my body was telling me that I needed to eat heavy foods to ground into the earth. And then I'm like, cool. Like this morning, I haven't eaten yet, and it's like because yesterday my belly was making some interesting movements, and I felt something, and I was like, okay, tomorrow I need to fast. And it was just like because I could hear it. Whereas I think what's happening a lot of times, we're just like habitually putting food in our mouth, so we can't actually hear what's happening in our gut and in our body, and with our energy levels. You know, like my energy levels were a little bit lower yesterday, so I'm like, okay, well, I need to fast today. So it's like it's the same thing across the board, across health, across all the things. It's like when you listen to the body, you don't need a regime. You don't need to live up to somebody else's spiritual ideologies. And the same with the self-pleasure. That's what I wrote this morning. I was like, you know, you don't need to. I said I want to offer you ways to listen to the intellect of your body. But ideally, I want my ideas to become obsolete to you eventually. Once your voice becomes really loud, because mine is just another idea and a concept, you know?
That's right. I love that. I really, really do. And I feel the exact same way, you know, and I feel like that's, you know, that's the journey, and that is the most empowering gift, you know, to have that, you know, kind of belief, but that, you know, that offering, I think that's really important, you know, and it's empowering ourselves and everyone that we work with. And speaking of that, and before we wrap up, I really want to like for you to share is for people who are watching and are going, I freaking love everything. I'm jamming with everything that she's saying, and I want to explore more about, you know, your offerings and how you do show up and serve these amazing people in the world. Is what would you say to them? Do they have questions floating around inside them, or is there something that, you know, where do they need to go? What's the next unfolding for them?
To connect to me or
explore more of you.
Great, awesome. So if you want to find out more about me, I'll put my website in the comments below. I'm on Instagram, which is tantric.witch. And I'm also on Facebook. Everyone's more than welcome to add me on Facebook. Those are the portals to like contact me in. I also have my school, which is the Institute of New Paradigm Intimacy, where I train women to become sex coaches and become the transmission of sexuality. I'm working on a few different things. There's there's some invite only pieces coming up. So if you just make yourself known, then I can kind of share with you what might be coming up.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
No worries.
I just, I say it all the time, but I never know where it's going to go, and I never know what
I
is
love that.
actually going to be shared. But every time it is just this beautiful unfolding, and I'm so glad that you and I finally got to connect today. And I've loved just hearing more about you, and I feel like it's this unique thread that you're bringing into the space. So thank you so much for all of the amazing work that you do. And I know that you will just continue to do so. And thank you for for just creating the space that you have and doing the work that you do. I really appreciate it. And I know that there's an army of amazing people who do the exact same thing. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you for creating such a beautiful interview space. It's been such a pleasure to be on, and I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You're going to put all of your details below, and I will thank you for that. Thank you to everybody who has tuned in today. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all next time. And thank you again, beautiful Victoria.
Thank you, honey. Really soon. Speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.